You're like a triple threat. Actress, director, general movie star hotness.
Let the music play. I just wanna dance the night away.
Is this place back by the mall?
I don't know how to get out.
I'm gonna shoot wherever I want, whenever I want. Take one.
Let the music play.
And now it's my great pleasure to introduce tonight's post-screening conversation. Joining us are the writer-director of The Old Man and the Gun and its two Academy Award-winning stars, on screen together for the first time in their legendary careers. Tonight's conversation will be moderated by the host of ScreenTimes, veteran New York Times contributor and self-proclaimed film fanatic Logan Hill. Please join me in giving a very warm welcome to Logan Hill and our special guests, writer-director David Lowery, and the stars of The Old Man and the Gun, Robert Redford and Sissy Spacek.
Just the two of us. I'm so sad they just got two bald guys up here. Look at that. I think they like the movie. Usually, I thank everyone for coming. Out of all the choices of the things you could have done tonight in New York City, you chose to come here. But obviously, you want to be here. I'm not going to say thank you for choosing this over everything else. Of course, you'd want to be here. We've got Sissy Spacek, Robert Redford, and David Lowery here to talk about a fantastic film. We've got people watching online. Hello, everyone online. We'll take a few of your questions later. But thank you all for coming. I'm really happy to be here.
Thank you all for coming to see this movie.
Thank you for having us.
This is wonderful, and I thought I would start by asking Bob. Do you now think that you might be a good bank robber? I feel like you would get away with it.
Well, if I could get away with it, I would have done it.
Yeah. You might want to try. I feel like who's going to say no to you? The fun thing is sometimes we have these conversations that start backstage and we get to continue them when we get out here. And I was just mentioning that I don't think a lot of people think of Sissy and Bob as New York actors. But in fact, this is really where it began for both of you. And I would love to hear you talk about how it happened for you. Like that moment where both of you realized you were an actor happened in New York, right?
Right. You want to go first, Bob?
You go, ladies first. Go ahead.
Okay. Well, actually, we met many years ago. I was just 19 or 20, and Bob, maybe not even that old, 18 or 19. And Bob wasn't that much older, but he was already a big star. And I met him we find that it was a mutual friend, a wonderful casting director named Marion Darty. And we called her Aunt Marion. I don't know about you, but I was going to her office for a meeting with a friend of yours, Michael Ritchie, who directed you in Downhill Racer and The Candidate, I think. And so he had already done that, and I was just going there to meet Michael on a film called Prime Cut, which was my first film. But I was so excited to meet him. He doesn't remember, but I remember for 60 years, 50 years. I called him Bobbert. And anyway, but I studied here for a little while and came here to be a musician. But I went to acting school, and then because of Marion, I got a job. Mm-hmm. And because I had lived here and went out to New York, from New York to LA, I was considered a New York actress, a legitimate actress. It was all a lie. And I've had guilt about that for many, many years, so now you know. It was a sham.
And Bob, you had gone from being an athlete to becoming a painter and going to Pratt to study painting, and then that leads you fairly quickly to the National Academy of Dramatic Arts, I believe?
The American Academy of Dramatic Arts, yeah.
Yeah. And so what was that transition like? What was it like becoming an actor here in New York at that point?
Well, as I grew up, I was not intending to be an actor because I grew up in kind of a rough neighborhood in California and Los Angeles, and we would go to the theater to make fun of the actors on the screen. It's kind of hard for me to accept being that guy on the screen, later. But I'll tell you one thing, a story not a lot of people know, is my first appearance on TV was for a program that Merv Griffin had back in 1959. It was called Play Your Hunch. And it was a quiz show. And so they were casting for people to be on that show as subjects. And so I was desperate. I needed money. And I said, well, do they pay you to do that? And they said, yeah. I said, okay, go down there and see if you can get on the show. So I did, and I got on it. And what it was, there were 3 screens. And there was going to be a guy standing in front of the 3 screens. And there would be 3 people behind that would be silhouetted. And I was one of them. And when they picked me, I was so excited because I thought, this is going to be my big moment. It's my big, I didn't know what I was going to be doing. I just knew I was going to be on TV. And so anyway, what it was the couple that was arguing about what was what, they said, okay, Merv says, here's a guy in the front, and one of these guys behind the 3 screens is this guy's twin brother. Right away, I'm starting to get nervous. And so they made a lot of comments, kind of dumb comments about, well, he looks too fat, he looks too tall. I think it's that guy, I think it's this guy. And finally, I was so embarrassed about having done this. I was so embarrassed. I said, this is my big moment on television. They said, let's find out who these guys are. So I was so embarrassed. My defense mode was to be angry. And so when he came out front, he said, Merv used to like to bounce. He didn't walk, he bounced. So he bounced over and he said, well, let's find out who these guys are. And sir, what about you? And he was already primed what my history was. I was a guy from LA originally, because they ask you that question. So he said, well, tell me, what about you? And I said, well, I'm an artist. He said, and what do you do? Do you paint stuff on somebody to find out if somebody's crazy or not? They put ink on a paper and put your hand in it and then try to decide if you're crazy? And I said, no. Right away I'm thinking, this is not going very well, And he said, well, let's find out some. Where are you from, Bob? And he was from San Francisco. And I said, I'm from LA. He says, LA, let's see. Oh yeah, LA, that's a little town just south of San Francisco, right? Little town? And I said, no, it's 400 miles away and bigger. I was really going down. So he got off of me real fast and went on to the art. And I was so embarrassed that I'd done that show. So that was my first job on TV. But then it went uphill from there. And I think what was really exciting for me is when I really, really got into the theater and got into programs that were exciting. And when you talk about Marion Doherty, she cast me in a TV version of The Iceman Cometh with Jason Robards. And that to me was my first experience. And that was, then Sidney Lumet directed me in a couple of things. And so as that began to grow, then I really felt comfortable saying, well, this is the right business for me to be in. But finally, it was really the theater when I first got on the stage and had that feeling of you're being live and you're with fellow actors, and particularly if they're good, like with Sissy. Being with Sissy is easy because she's a professional and she's skilled. And so there's not a lot of talk that has to go between us. Things just sort of fall into place, don't you think? Don't you think?
Yes, I do.
Anyway, forget what I said. So, at any rate, I felt suddenly when I really got into the theater and was able to play real parts that I suddenly felt alive, and that's when I realized, I guess this is right for me. It's right for me to be in this business. But it was really the theater that started it.
I remember interviewing you once, and you talked about the theater more than film being the inspiration for Sundance. That the process of, the simple process of making theater in a room with collaborators was kind of the idea behind the labs and the Institute, maybe more than your experience working on film sets in some way.
Well, I think to me, collaboration has a lot of power. And that's what the labs were going to be about. It's going to be about artists working together to come to a common good and to work together to develop something that would come out as one thing. But it was the collaboration that would make it work. And I just suddenly realized that there's something really powerful and pleasurable about collaboration, because you really feel there's an energy that goes between you when you collaborate. And when you work with good actors, like working with Sissy on this last film, the collaboration occurred in silence. We didn't have to talk about it. Things just sort of fell into place because you realize you were in the company of a good actor, and you didn't have to think too much. You could just do stuff, and they would pick up on it, and you could also improvise. As long as you stayed within the context of the film, the context of the story, you could also improvise, which is a great pleasure. And she and I could do that.
Sissy, would you agree? Were things easy from the moment you met? This is the first time the two of you have worked together, right?
Yeah.
The first time.
And was it easy from the beginning, or did it take you a little while to figure each other out?
It was easy. I thought it was easy from the beginning, but when we were doing the scene in the cafe, I was evidently so enamored with Mr. Redford over here that David had to come over and whisper in my ear, "It's Forrest Tucker. It's not Robert Redford. Play a little harder to get." I'm like, oh my God. That's when the blushing started.
But you know, enough about us. I just would like to say this because it's really the bottom line here. This is really David's project. It's David's film. We gave ourselves over to him as actors. And that was really, I'm feeling, a really good choice because I had total faith that he was a director that needed the full picture to take a hold of. And so turning ourselves over to David meant putting ourselves in his hands, and we were going to be pawns in his project.
No pressure.
None whatsoever.
Anyway, it was something I'm glad we did because it turned out really, from our standpoint, working with the director, and also he was a director that understood when he didn't have to say anything, that he could let things just play out. He didn't have to step in. Some directors feel like they constantly have to be directing, and they step in, and they can kill something.
Yeah, he let you let scenes play, and that was really lovely.
I am really bad at micromanaging.
That's good.
I agree.
So, it's more deliberate even than trusting him to cast you in this film. You had the option on this this wonderful story by David Grant in The New Yorker, and Bob brought this to you, right, and said, I want to see what you can do with this, and you began writing a screenplay. Can you tell us a little bit about that first discussion?
Yeah, I don't remember exactly what transpired in the office in Santa Monica, but I know we showed up, and it was our first time meeting in person, and I had read the article, loved the idea of developing it as a film for you, and I feel like 2 hours later I walked out thinking, okay, I'm going to write the script. So I can't remember, I've been thinking about it a lot lately, like what exactly, it must have been a version of the movie that wasn't too dissimilar from what we made here, because I know that, I feel like we made the movie we set out to make, but many drafts of the script transpired from that point forward, and at the core of it, it was always going to be like, I wanted to make a movie about this character, but I also wanted it to be this quintessential outlaw tale, and I couldn't think of anyone better to play quintessential outlaw than Robert Redford.
Well, and also the idea of turning this completely over to David was the right choice. And I think he and I had done a project before that called Pete's Dragon, where I just played a part in it. But it was his project, and I had Old Man the Gun, I had the rights to it. And so I talked to him about it at that time, and I said, look, I want to give you something to look at after this is over. So I did, and he seemed interested, and I said, okay, I'll wait. I'll wait for that. And I just think I made the best choice I could have made, because what it did, and I took the role of being a producer in it for only two reasons. One was to support him, because I really believed in him. And now we find out that was a huge mistake. No, I believed in him, so I wanted to give it to him. And the other thing was to protect him from outside interference, because that's always a classic thing with a first-time director who gets control of a whole project. A lot of voices from the studio on want to step in and tell you what you should be doing. And I thought that we should give him this film and let him make this film entirely on his own, just the way he wants to do it. So that was my real contribution on the production end, that nothing more than that, because he produces his own films.
Thank you for that.
And you know, when I think of your work, you're not one of those directors that I think, oh, he has this one stamp that he puts on his films. There's a certain kind of movie he makes, you know, from Anthem Body Saints to Pete's Dragon to Ghost Story. That you are capable of working in so many different modes, which means I think this film could have probably ended up in a lot of different sorts of shapes and forms. And I know you developed this script over a number of years. Do you mind telling us a little bit about other things you might have thought? There's some very conventional beats that maybe aren't in this script. You know, he never finds
like
out.
John Hunt catching Forrest Tucker. That was There was a version of the script where that happened, and it never felt right.
Yeah.
And that's always my process, to just write my way through it. In the same way that Bob and Sissy were talking about improvising, I improvise when I'm writing, and I try out lots of different things until it feels just right. And I never think about, you know, that personal stamp. I trust that it will show up. I trust that my movies will feel like my movies, but I always try to just let the story speak to me. As much of a cliche as that sounds, it's true. I also try to think of myself as an audience member watching the movie and thinking, would this satisfy me? I go see 3 or 4 movies a week. I am an avid moviegoer, and I just want to make myself happy as an audience member and trust that other audience members will share my taste. Yeah. Hopefully lots of them. But the process always is, you know, interesting, because you do all these different versions. You try out all these different things, both in the writing, then in the shooting, then in the editing. And at the end of the day, you wind up with something that is pretty close to what you set out to make. And it never feels like it's veered too far off course, and that you wound up with you're never surprised at the end of it. You're pleasantly satisfied to see that your vision remained intact somehow. And it's crazy to me how much of a journey you have to go on to get back to that place.
Yeah. Oh, go ahead.
Just a word on Sissy. I had seen her some years before, and there was a film called Badlands that she and Martin Sheen did. And it was before Bonnie and Clyde, but it was about Bonnie and Clyde. It was the early version of Bonnie and Clyde that Terry Malick made as a film. And that's when I first saw her. And I thought, wow, that's quite a performance.
You sure waited a long time to get the movie.
I thought she was really good, and I thought, well, he was too. And so I thought, well, that's somebody to watch, really somebody to watch. And so that was really the first time I saw her work. And so finally, when we got around to it, it was a pleasure to be able to work with her, because I'd watched her work since then. So anyway, I really enjoyed working with you.
I really enjoyed working with you. You're a trip.
You all talk about how easy it was working together, and there's such an easy kind of chemistry to the film that courses through the whole thing. But I wonder, what was hard about this film? What was tricky to figure out?
Nothing.
I always find that getting up in the morning is usually the hardest part of it.
Yeah.
Right.
You get to the end of the day, any average shoot day, and you just want to keep going, but then the mornings are they're killer.
I wonder if you haven't read the original story, there's this great quote from David Grant. He says, the best hold-up men, in his view, were like stage actors, able to hold a room by the sheer force of personality. Some even wore makeup and practiced getting into character. And if we think about the history of film, let alone the history of your films, these kinds of rogues have been a favorite of yours to play. Is there a kinship, you think, behind this kind of a person and an actor like yourself?
What kind of? I'm sorry.
Between the bank robbers and grifters and con artists and the cons you do as pull as an actor.
Well, I think what interested me about this, because it was also true, and that is that normally you would see bank robbers as villains, and they would be looking like villains and behaving like villains, you know, Henri and so forth. What appealed to me about this was a bank robber who was having fun. He just loved what he was doing, and he just was going to keep doing it.
And he never spent his money.
No, it's weird. And I just love that concept of a guy that robbed banks because he was just having such fun. He kept getting caught. He kept getting sent to prison. He kept escaping, and then he'd rob banks again. So he just kept repeating this over and over again. And I love the concept of a guy doing what he did, which normally would be conceived as something really awful, as a guy just having fun.
Yeah.
I thought that was a wonderful take on a bank robber.
And I won't deny that there's something autobiographical about that on a certain level.
In what sense?
I just love what I'm doing and I can't stop.
Yeah. And Sissy, how much do you think Jewel's aware of exactly who she's in a relationship with?
At what point?
Yeah, I guess.
I think Jewel thought that he stopped to help her because he was a chivalrous man. I was wrong, because when I saw the film, I saw 2 cop cars speeding by after him, and he was on the side of the road helping me. I think she became enamored and fell for him in spite of what he did. And I think in the beginning she didn't believe him. I think she just thought it was the most original pickup line in the world. And she went for it.
I have to say, by the way, Sissy, you're on fire right now. I mean, Castle Rock is one of my favorite shows on TV. I was just saying how obsessed I was with the 7th episode. That series is one of the best episodes of TV that I've seen in a long time. You're in an LCD sound system music video that came out this week. You've got another TV series, Homecoming, coming up in addition to this. How does this happen when, I'm sure every actor has, you have these hot spells and these slower...
Yeah, you get hot. You figure out that you've got to make hay while the sun shines. Because then you're going to have long dry spells. So this was a yes year.
Yeah, it's amazing. So we've been getting a few of these little questions from our friends on Facebook watching the live stream. Hi, everybody. Angel from Facebook asks, okay, this is a classic. What has been your favorite role in film or theater to date?
Me?
All 3 of you.
All of us.
And you could say a favorite performance of theirs, maybe.
Let's see. You want to go first?
It's hard to choose. I mean, there have been so many I've loved doing. So many. It'd be hard to pick one over the others.
How about, since we were talking about early days,
Early days?
Yeah. How about one from the first?
Well, in the early days, I started in the theater first, and then I went into television. In the early days of television, I played mostly villains and psychopaths. Because they were fun to act. They were really fun to act. But those were my early years. So the other parts came later.
How about you? Want to pick a favorite from the early days, maybe?
Badlands.
Yeah.
Badlands was where everything changed for me. I met my husband, who was also working on the film. I realized at that point that that film was art, and not just our pictures real big up on the screen. And that was real where I felt like I became a filmmaker and not just an actress.
I'm going to get hyper specific.
All right.
Bob, there's a scene in Downhill Racer where you lean over as the young lady doesn't want to leave the car and you just lean on the horn. It's one of my favorite moments in movie history.
That was improvised.
I know, it's one of the great bits of trivia that I've learned in hanging out with you. And then Sissy, the one scene I think maybe also was improvised in Coal Miner's Daughter when you're driving in the Jeep and reveal that you're pregnant.
Oh, the part of that was driving in the Jeep.
Yeah.
You know what was improvised there was Tommy Lee says, so.
He's like, are you
say?
what did the doctor say?
What did the doctor say? are you sick? You went to the doctor? Are you sick? And she goes, yeah, I'm gonna have a baby. And I think the line was, no, I'm gonna have a baby, but
Exactly.
yeah, I'm gonna have a baby was funny.
It was an amazing moment.
We have a question here from Jean from Facebook. This is for Bob. I know you feel like this maybe has been blown out of proportion, but obviously there's been this narrative about this possibly being your last film role. I think you said something earlier on, and maybe it is, maybe it isn't. But I want to ask you this question: how did it feel to be making this film? And did you ever have the fear of, like, if this is his last role and I screw it up, that's going to put this enormous pressure on me to get this right?
For that reason, it never crossed my mind. I would not allow that to cross my mind. It's just not the right type of thing to think about while you're making a film or when you're talking about one. That's too much.
Yeah.
And if
it was
he
a
screwed it
mistake.
up, he would have had to do another one.
Yeah.
Exactly.
I think what I said was a mistake, by the way, and I resent that. And no, I am retiring, but no, I'm kidding. No, it was a mistake because what I was thinking was, I shouldn't be talking about retiring. I should just slip easily away from acting into some other territory, but not talk about it, because in saying that, it at that moment drew way too much attention to me because of that, and it drew attention away from the reason I was there. I was there to support the cast, which was terrific. And I felt bad about that. I thought that was really a big mistake, because had I just not said anything, the attention would have stayed focused on Sissy and the rest of the cast.
Could you knock it off, Logan?
Yeah. It was Jean from Facebook. It wasn't me. And we have Brian from Facebook saying, they just want to know, what are your favorite hobbies outside of the film world? When you guys aren't on sets, what are the three of you doing?
I've really gotten into building giant Lego kits over the
Really?
past few months. That's become like a new thing for me. So you'll find me at the Lego store after this, finding some new impressive piece of Lego paraphernalia.
Do you follow
to
the
bring home.
instructions and build it exactly what the kit tells you to build?
I didn't when I was young, but when I was young, I was like, screw these instructions. But now there's great satisfaction, great comfort to be found in one aspect of my life, that there's an instruction book that comes along with it.
I just built the movie theater set with my daughter, so there's a movie.
It's a good one. It's a really good one.
That's good, yeah. How about the two of you? What are you doing when you're not on a film set?
I rest.
Yeah.
I'm a big gardener, and I live on a farm, and so I watch the grass grow.
Did you say, what do we do on a film set?
When you're not on a film set.
When you're not on a film set.
Someone watching was asking, what are your hobbies?
You mean off? I have several, and I'm very occupied with them. So I keep myself quite busy. There are a lot of things. I love to ride horses. I love to ski. I love to do a lot of things that are not acting. I thought you meant, what do I do on the set while I'm filming?
Oh, well, that's a good question too. What do you do
I
on set?
can't sit there. I noticed that earlier times the actors would, not doing a scene, they just sit down on the set and chat. So I couldn't do that. So what I would do when I wasn't acting, rather than sitting around, I would leave the set, I would leave the studio, and I'd go for a walk. And I'd walk and I'd walk and I'd walk, because I just couldn't, I didn't want to sit there and have my energy just drained. I wanted to keep it up, and the best way to do that was for me to get away from the set. Get away from, even though I love my fellow actors, I need to get away from them in between. And so when she was acting, I would go for a walk.
We could never find you. Actually, you know what he was really doing? He was reading the New York Times. That's the truth.
That's the honest truth.
The honest truth. The old-fashioned way, like this. I was doing it like this.
Last question for you all. Thank you so much for talking tonight. Forrest Tucker talks about having certain things on his list. I'm curious, for all three of you, what is next? What's at the top of that list for you artistically? You've done so many different kinds of work, all three of you, over your career so far. What's on that list? What are you dying to do soon? Not necessarily acting, could be directing, producing.
Got this other Lego kit at home.
Yeah.
The Harry Potter one, the Hogwarts. Yeah, I gotta do that one. No, I for once am not thinking about the next thing. There are next things, but right now I just want to just focus on getting this movie out in the world because this has been a real pinch me moment, to be honest. Making this movie, getting to work with the cast that we had in this film, and now showing it to audiences. It's really an amazing experience, and I'm going to enjoy it.
Yeah.
And I'm just looking to find a character and a project that I can devote some time to, because for me, that's the most fun of working on a film, is doing the research and working on the character and figuring it all out and the planning. So that's what I'm going to do. Take a little break and then do some
I'm going to
more
write
planning.
something. Yeah, I'll let you know.
You all heard it. He said it.
You've got the next thing on your list.
You got to hold him to it.
Next Lego movie, maybe. How about you? You have?
Well, what do I do when I'm not? I so believe in being in the moment. I so believe in living in the moment. I try to avoid speculation. I try to avoid thinking ahead, because very often that just doesn't work out anyway. So why don't you just live in the moment and make the most of the moment you're in, and then what comes next will come next.
Yeah. Great thought. Great way to end tonight. Thank you all for coming. Thank you guys for coming. Really appreciate it.
Thank you, everybody.